Evening. Welcome back to House Groups. I'm sure you missed being together last week, but it was great, amazing to worship together with so many of you at Encounter. That was just awesome. But we're excited to be back in House Groups this week. This week, we are looking at the Last Supper in the book of Luke. And tonight, in this video, I want to spend a little bit of time looking at the verses that precede it, as we didn't get to spend as much time on that on Sunday morning. And so we see in the narrative that Jesus sends two of the disciples into the city, into Jerusalem, to prepare this Passover meal that they're going to eat together. And Luke's gospel actually tells us the name. It's the only gospel that tells us the names of the two disciples that go in. And we learn that it's Peter and it's John. And they're to go into Jerusalem. And when they get there, they're to follow a man who's carrying a jar of water. Now, that may seem like, well, aren't there a lot of people carrying a jar of water in Jerusalem? But it actually would have been easier to spot than you think, because in those days, typically only women would carry a jar of water. In fact, even if you go to places like Haiti today, you still will see that it's mostly the women that do the hard work of carrying everything around, and on their heads, no less, in Haiti. And so Peter and John, they follow this man with a water to this house. And whether they acknowledge themselves or reveal themselves to him or not is kind of unknown in the text. I've always imagined it as sort of like a spy scene, that they're just kind of like ducking behind walls and following this guy until they get to the house. And when they get to the house, they're supposed to tell the owner of the house that the teacher asks, "Where is the guest room where I may eat the Passover with my disciples?" And then they're shown what becomes this famous upper room in Jerusalem. And that's where they have the Passover and thus the Last Supper, and communion is instituted. And you can see in this passage that Jesus is not just a man, right? We say as Christians that he is fully man, but he is also fully God. His foreknowledge of events is just perfect, right? He's going like, okay, you're going to find a man carrying a jar of water, then go to this house and say this. And we can also see in this passage that Jesus is having everything done basically in secret. Right, he only sends two of the disciples to go follow this water carrying man on this spy mission, and they're kind of just the two of them are preparing the meal, all while Jesus and the rest of the disciples stay outside of the city and sort of sneak in later. Well, why is that happening? Well, as we studied last week and as Pastor Josh taught on, Judas is going to betray Jesus, and Jesus is well aware of that. Jesus' arrest is imminent at this point, as is his death, and it is critical for the future of the Christian church that the Last Supper actually happens and that Jesus isn't arrested prematurely, and so thus the secrecy of this event. So everything that Jesus does, everything has purpose, and that's true in your own life too. From the big things to the smallest details, we can trust in God and we can trust in his plans. Amen.